Oh, look at that.
Hello. We started. Hello, welcome to Make More Noise interview series. Please like the video down below. If you haven't already, subscribe, share the videos, helps to bring us up in the ratings. I'm really excited today to be joined by one of my favourite artists, Nina Paley. Is that how you say it?
That's exactly how you say it.
Nina Paley.
She's with an American accent. Nina Paley.
Nina Paley?
Good job.
I'm sorry to the Americans listening here, butchered your language. She's best known for her work at Sita Sings the Blues and Sadomasochism. I'll put some links in the description below. You can watch them for free on YouTube. They're absolutely fantastic. So I'm really happy to have it on today. How's it going, Nina?
Pretty good. Yeah, actually, I'm just fine. It's really cold right now, so I'm not bicycling, and I have all day to just sit around and talk and text on my phone and be a domestic captive.
Yeah, I know that feeling. It's definitely turned into winter today. I think today's the first day where the weather's just gone like
so. Yeah, it froze here. It was literally freezing this morning. So time to hibernate and podcast.
Yeah, I think it's the time of the year, isn't it? Put your bicycle away and try and get on with some work.
Yes. Yeah, I'm actually doing that. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I just got a new haircut today, and I'm just getting used to it. It's very different, and I don't know. I was trying to like butch myself up a little bit, but I just think I look a bit more feminine. Like it's not really working.
It's bangs. You know, I started cutting my own hair in the pandemic. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I cut my hair myself. And I'm like, I have no idea if people think I have a good haircut or not. But whatever it is, I do it myself.
Just like that. Oh, that'll do. No, I got a man to do it. I'm just adjusting myself. So if I'm doing this in the interview, that's what it is. I'm not like, oh, I feel like I'm one of them tidy boys now, though, isn't it? Like,
Are we actually live, or are we recording this for the future?
Yeah, we'll record it now, and then I'll put it up in the next week or so, I think.
Okay, cool. But there's nobody like watching us right now.
Yeah, we've not got a little sidebar people like I don't know, commenting or what have you. So if people haven't seen your work before, would you like to give how would you describe the artwork that you make and the films that you make?
Well, I am best known for my animated feature film, Sita Sings the Blues. My second feature film, Sadomasochism, I'm not as well known for because that film came out in the midst of a cancellation campaign against me. Mm-hmm. All my work is free. I'm a free culture advocate. You can find it all over the place. The best place to find it is on archive.org. If you go to my blog, which is ninapaley.com, there's a sidebar with links you can click on. People do repost my work because it is free culture. If you find it on YouTube might have silenced parts of it. People might have put commercials on it. So, you know, if you want the best unadulterated links, you can go to sitasingstheblues.com and sadomasochism.com, or just go to archive.org and find it there.
I'll put a little link in the description so people can have a look. I share it with everybody. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think they really remind me of like Terry Gilliam. You know the is it Monty? What's the Monty?
Yeah,
Python?
Monty Python. Yes, I watched that when I was a kid, and I loved Terry Gilliam. Oh my gosh! And you know he was just canceled.
Yeah, I was going to say he's been cancelled from the Old Vic, which used to have Kevin Spacey as the artistic director. So I think it's a little bit interesting that he's cancelled because he called himself a black lesbian, and apparently you're not allowed to identify as. Well, some people are allowed as women, but other ones are not allowed to. I don't know how it works, but.
Yeah, well, he was making a joke. They really hate jokes. They hate if you're not like really serious about this.
Yeah. No, there definitely is a lack of humor in authoritarian types, which I guess it's difficult if you're a bit of a joke. If you're a bit of a joker, like I get the feeling that a bit of a joke of yourself. Your work is quite humorous. And do you think that's a reason why you get yourself into trouble with certain peoples?
Yes. So I first got canceled in 2017. Well, I guess it was really part of this. My cancellation increased in 2017 when I shared the lyrics, "If a person has a penis, he's a man." I don't know if you've heard that turf folk song.
Yeah.
Was written by Connie Bryson, who has since died tragically. And unfortunately, I didn't get to meet her before she died. But that seems to have outraged people more than anything because it was funny. And somehow they just get so upset. Like, there's no laughing matter and it's not respectful and no one can laugh.
Do you know what? It all reminds me of the Margaret Atwood quote. What is it? Men are afraid that women will laugh at them. Women are afraid that men will kill them. I think a lot of this comes down to cats trying to eat my crisps. I think a lot of this comes down to women aren't supposed to be funny, and funny women are seen as a little bit of a threat to the status quo. I think we're supposed to be the one that laughs. Do you know what I mean? We're supposed to be the audience, and that we sit there and man makes a joke. And
yes, we're supposed to laugh at men's jokes. We're not supposed to laugh at what we're saying to each other. That's very bad.
What are you working on at the moment? Are you working on a new project?
It's a cute cat. Yeah, I'm finally focusing again on art. It's been months. I spent all summer just bicycling. But yes, I am working on my Apocalypse animated project. I am making animated GIFs to illustrate the Book of Revelation. I started this early 2020 when it felt like the apocalypse was happening. I was feeling very apocalyptic. And so I actually read the Book of Revelation, which I'd never read before. And I was like, oh my God, this is totally out there, psychedelic weirdness. Very visual.
There's a lot of imagery in there, isn't there?
Yes. So I started working on it, but then summer came and I felt like biking. And then, I don't know, I didn't work on it over last winter, but I was just like, I really want to start this again. So amazingly, I am working on it. And the work in progress is at apocalypseanimated.com. I'm up to chapter 4. It'll be a while till I get to all 22 chapters, but I'm just going in order, plugging away.
Well, I think it's right. Like, apocalypse seems to be on everybody's tongues at the moment. I keep coming back. Hang on, when I was doing the apocalypse thing, and I'll tell you what, I keep coming back to this thing. And can I read it? Can I read it out? I've been finding this poem, and I come back to it. It's The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is lucid, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. So yeah, I feel like that seems to really sum up a lot of things that are happening now. Is that we're going into this polarized time, and I think we've sort of seen some of it ourselves. I think being demonized with like the evil turf sort of almost antichrist, that sort of inverted evil. Well, from our perspective, it's the other way around. We're the innocent witches, if you will. And I guess for myself, I guess I start to lose neurons. I know myself have lost patience with everything now. I've come full circle from being we've got to find a compromise in the middle ground, and and now I'm just like not moving. I'm not surrendering. I don't know what you feel about that. Is anything like that informing your work and the things that have happened to you in the past few years with your cancellation and things like that?
Well, yeah, I've never apologized for saying if a person has a penis, he's a man. They really wanted an apology for that. I think I am older than you. Can I guess how much? I'm guessing I got about 20 years on you.
I'm 38.
I am 53. So I was close.
About 15, so.
Yeah, 15 years on you. So, back in the day, I was all super into trans. I was even into autogynephiles, not having a word for it and not knowing what they actually were. I mean, like you saw that article I wrote about sex positive San Francisco. I was into all this shit. And I had many, I want to call them trannies, god damn it, because my trans friends had a sense of humor. People had a sense of humor back then. And they referred to themselves as trannies. They were not super serious about it. And any trans...
It's a new word. I think they don't want you to say tranny because that will make people think about transvestites, which is kind of what a lot of this is, isn't it? They're trying to clean the brand by using a word like transgender, and they've made tranny a taboo when actually it was the word that everybody used until a few years ago.
Yeah, and also it's like, how could tranny only refer to transvestites? It refers to transsexuals. I had transsexual friends. And by transsexual, what I mean is somebody that gets surgery, right? Like if a man, wanted to live as a woman, whatever that was, he would cut his balls off. Have some freaking commitment. I do this podcast with Corinna Cohn, who is transsexual. And I realized that, now we should be questioning the word trans, right? Like it's totally legit to question that word and to stop using it, to use maybe the word trans-identified instead, because you can't actually change sex. We know that. And the word transition implies that you actually could change sex. When I say transsexual, what I mean literally is feminized eunuch. If I'm talking about a it's so hard. Like a trans woman transsexual is a feminized eunuch. That is somebody who has undergone surgery, who does not have gonads. And that's what trannies were back in the day. And transvestites were transvestites. And they were friends of mine, and I was into it. And I was happy to call men she that were into this. At the beginning, it seemed really subversive. So I realize now that I had some friends who were autogynephiles. They were the ones saying transgender. I actually had a couple autogynephilic lovers, and I didn't have a word for it at the time. I just thought we were so cool because we were all gender bending and subverting gender, and it seemed really transgressive.
You're subverting normality, isn't it? It's sort of seen as like playing around with gender roles, and I think it's easy to sell that to people, but I think with time, I think you can see how it's enforcing them, because it's saying that the gender roles are what makes you a man or a woman.
Yes, and the thing is, back then it was a fringe thing. And like I could not have imagined it changing this much. So I don't do this anymore. I pointedly do not missex people. I use pronouns according to their sex, including people who 15 years ago I would much have preferred to use their gender identity pronouns, but it was different 15 years ago. And so I call Corinna him, even though Corinna is one of the few trannies that actually pass. And all my friends refer to him as her. But I'm like, nope, it's gotten out of hand. And I'm just using sex-based pronouns now.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. I think there's a bit of a debate going on. I think especially in the UK. I'm not sure so much in America. I don't know what the scene is over there. But there's been a little bit of a back and forth, I think, between those who have a more nuanced position and give pronouns where they feel comfortable in their own ways, and others who never ever give pronouns. And I think that more and more I'm coming to realize that a lot of this pronouns is the center of it all, because if you don't use pronouns for somebody, then you can't really be seen to be living as the opposite sex. A lot of this time, the gender reassignment legislation relies on somebody going to work and saying, I identify as the opposite sex, sex and then everybody making you use the pronoun for the person. What do you think about the debates around pronouns? Do you think that it's possible to sort of get past this without us totally stopping using pronouns? Or do you think that it's different, be like using them with places? Like, what's your thinking about pronouns, and has it changed from maybe a few years ago to now? And
it's absolutely changed a few years ago. A few years ago, I would have been referring to Corinna as she, and now I refer to him as he, largely because of an ideological position, right? Largely, even though, like I say, I would say Corinna passes. So it actually invokes a little tiny bit of cognitive dissonance to call him he. I'm just like, I use sex-based pronouns. Now, most people who, and by the way, we have to use pronouns to speak English, right? I think you're talking about preferred pronouns, right? Like wrong pronouns, pronouns that don't correspond to people's sex. And with pronouns, nobody should dictate what pronouns you use. Pronouns are in the mouth of the speaker. They're not controlled by the spoken about. It's so hypocritical that these special pronoun people say that this is like a human right, because what they're saying is that every individual should then dictate how they're spoken about. And it's like, I didn't say I was a TERF. I didn't say, like, you're misidentifying me in a bunch of ways, right? Like they say I'm a white supremacist eugenicist that hates trans people. And that's like absolutely not true, but they are happy to identify me that way. And because I'm an adult, I know that, like, even though they're absolutely and utterly wrong, unfortunately, I don't get to dictate how they identify me, and they don't get to dictate how I identify them. I think I'm better at identifying than they are. I think they're like completely unhinged to say that I hate trans people and all this other terrible stuff, Nazi or whatever. But it's like, people are dumb and misidentify all the time, including themselves. And so it's, everybody has the right to identify however they want, but they don't have the right to tell me how to identify them.
Yeah, I think this is something that I find, like, I don't know, like, most of us have an ego that lies about ourselves to ourselves. We all paint ourselves in a good picture. Like, none of us, very few people think, oh, I'm a bit of a twat, actually. Do you know what I mean? Like, most of us think we're pretty decent, but most of us realize, like, I can't control what you think about me. I can't control what anybody thinks of me. I know some people don't like me. Some people think I'm nasty. I mean, perfectly entitled to do that. If you don't want to be friends with somebody, you don't have to choose to be friends with them. You generally tend to hang out with people that quite like you. You know what I mean? And this idea that you have the right to control what somebody thinks about you, like your identity, the Amnesty International slogan now is "I am who I say I am," but nobody's who they say they are. I don't have the first idea who I am, like, not on like a philosophical level, but that's just reality, isn't it? Like, you've got yourself, who you are in your head, and then who everybody else sees you as a little bit different, and everybody's perception of you will be based on all their own baggage and their own self-perceptions, and like their relationship to you. And this idea that you're a free floating identity that exists without relation to anybody else is, I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Aside from all the issues with the sort of totalitarian concept of this is who I am and this is how you must see me, I just think that it's just a moribund and just very easy to disprove concept of how everybody should live. And like you say, it doesn't go back, because we're not allowed to say I'm not cis. If you say to somebody, don't call me a cis person, and then they're like, but you identify as in the gender that you were assigned at birth, and obviously none of that really makes much sense. But we're not allowed to have the right to say no.
Well, we have the right to say it. It's just that then we face consequences. Consequences like being canceled. It's just facing consequences.
Yeah. Do you know what? Every time I hear that all the time, like it's freedom of speech, not freedom of consequences. Do you know what it reminds me of? There's an Idi Amin quote, and he says, "Freedom of speech, yes, I like. Freedom after speech, not so much."
Well, anyway, I don't want to lie. I have a deep moral problem with lying. And that includes apologizing to bullies. Like when somebody is threatening you, like what kind of apology is it if it's under threat? And I think about that, like I would like these film festivals that have canceled me. I dream that someday they will apologize. Maybe someday soon. But it can't be because I threaten them, right? Like it has to, like they have to figure it out. Or they have to, get enough support so that they won't be terrified that they'll be canceled as well.
Do you think that, I don't know, do you think we'll ever get to the stage where those cancelers will uncancel you? Because I worry that there's almost like they're too caught up now on the wrong side of the story. And I feel like what we're seeing, like with a lot of the stuff like Loudoun County, I'm not saying that properly, Loudoun County School Board, where they introduced a mixed sex bathroom policy, and then a girl was abused, and then they basically are covering it up. And my concern is, even if they are sorry, I think there's something now in the psychology of people that it's going to be really hard for them to step back. And I think you might get an apology, but it's only going to be, I'm sorry, because if I don't say this, then my reputation will be trash kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you think there is space for people to genuinely like think I've done wrong and then step down, step back, turn around and apologize? Like, have you had anybody do that? Have you had anybody who's sort of attacked you, or who's, not necessarily been on your side, and who's now coming around a little bit to some of the stuff?
Let's see. I think a few, but nobody who attacked me with great power. Nobody who was in a position of power has done that. I use the social media platform Spinster. Are you familiar with Spinster.xyz? I'm actually a mod there.
I was on it, and then I kind of left. It got a little bit like.
So it's had some bad moments, especially in its infancy.
Yeah. I think
it's stable. There was some serious. That's actually pretty common when things are new. That everyone's like, "Oh, this is great," and then they like are disappointed, and people just go bananas online. Like no social media is immune from that. It was really touch and go. Things have mostly sorted themselves out, but every once in a while there's a blow up, and. On Spinster, like everywhere else, people need to block. They need to block and mute.
Yeah. I don't know what's wrong with people. Like a normal person is, if you don't like somebody, what you do is you just maybe you have a little bit of a row on social media, and then you screenshot it and you send it to your friends, and you go, "Have you seen what this dickhead has said?" And like, "Oh my god, what a fucking twat!" And then like that's it, innit? You're like, I fucking tell you what, and then you don't really say anything because you think, hang on a minute, you're 38 years old. Stop arguing with strangers on the internet.
Yes, that's very healthy. My main thing as a mod, when I was modding more actively, we would have these waves, and I would just make little PSAs. It's like, block and mute. Don't forget to block and mute. It's like mental hygiene.
Yeah.
What was my point? Oh, right. But a few people have come on to Spinster and said, yeah, I used to be one of those people. I used to denounce people for being TERFs, and whoops, I'm really sorry. So there have certainly been some people that were part of the mob that have come around, but nobody who has really attacked me directly, no one has ever apologized. But you know what? It's not the crazy people that attack me directly that upset me. It's the people that should be the adults in the room Like, and with festivals, it's not the people that pressure the festivals because they're, they're full-time bullies. That's what they do. It's the festival people that cave to them, or the people of the platform, because I get these emails where they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry this happened. I'd heard about cancel culture, but never saw it myself. But we had to do this." And I see their point of view, right? Like they're not warriors. They didn't sign up to have to, plant their feet and stand up using their spines. But they are supposed to be the adults, and they're not acting like it. I would like one of them to apologize publicly, because they apologized to me, but it's like, it doesn't matter if you apologize to me. What about your audience?
Private apologies don't really put in the red. They don't really mean anything, do they? It feels a bit like Weasley words, and yeah, I think there's a real problem now with institutions caving. I'm not sure if you saw recently in the past few days, Sussex University. Kathleen Stock has resigned from Sussex University, and then a couple of days later, I saw in Leeds University, students are demanding that all the senior managers put their pronouns in their email signatures, and at the start of every meeting, they've got to go around and introduce themselves, give their pronouns, which I just think is enforcing patriarchy. If every meeting women have to go around and being, she, her, men, he, him. And then some people who think that because they, I don't know, like wearing men's shirts, that means they're not female anymore or something. And then you have to remember to refer to them as they, on your hair and all, who is this?
This is why Graham mistakenly said I was a lesbian. Just look at me, short hair and plaid. Oh my God.
Have you got Birkenstocks on and all?
No Birkenstocks right now. I, believe it or not, I have different kinds of clothes that I wear at different times. I can actually wear something other than this shirt.
Are you gender fluid then? Is that what you're telling me? Are you on a mandate today?
I don't know what the word is for just having different kinds of clothes in your closet and wearing them occasionally.
This is something I don't get. Can you understand this? Because I don't get it. Like, I don't understand where we're getting what is so confusing about our arguments to younger people, because they must argue with their eyes and their ears closed, because they haven't noticed that most of the people who they're having the arguments with are relatively gender non-conforming themselves. We kind of grew up in an era, I know, like in the 1980s, in England at least, it was Boy George, and girls were punks and cutting all the hair off, and boys were growing all the hair and wearing makeup. Myself, I grew up in like Britpop era, when everything was just like t-shirts and jeans and baggy trousers, and we kind of messed around with gender roles ourselves, and it didn't really bother us. And yet we're kind of treated as some weird, I don't know, like Karen stereotypes of people who never really understand anything, like we have a really boring relationship with the gender that our mother gave us or something. Like, what do you understand kind of what's happening in the minds of younger people, and in their confusion, and they're thinking that they've sort of reinvented the wheel with the way that they're playing around with gender, and the way that I guess since their grandparents have been doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't actually think the content of any arguments or any position make any difference to them. I think it's all tribal affiliation, and they're affiliated with whatever tribe they're affiliated with. It is weird to see this massive generation gap, or almost like fight between young people. I've thought a lot about people having issues with mothers, and that even though I don't have children, it doesn't matter. I'm the age of mother. Like, I am symbolically a mother that this cohort of children is working out something psychologically with. This generation raised by my generation. And let me tell you, when my generation started having kids, I was horrified. I was like, you are doing such an awful job raising these kids, like you are making them such little narcissists. And it's been borne out. But they don't separate from their parents. They don't go through this necessary phase kids have of differentiating from their parents. So they're messed up and they still need to do that, but their parents have been busy not setting boundaries with them and trying to be their friend. So maybe what they're doing is, instead of like, I hate you, mom, it's just like, I hate you, entire, mom substitute generation of women. Like, anybody that does have boundaries, they're acting that out with us rather than with their own families, because their families were too cowardly to tolerate any sort of they were too cowardly to tolerate being disliked from their kids. So their kids didn't grow up, but they're still like trying to, now that they're in their 20s. They actually really need us to say no.
Do you think this is because of the generation? I think I noticed it, people taking their kids to festivals, and I was like, kids shouldn't be going to music festivals. Kids should be at home, and you should go to a music festival or grow to a certain age and like not go to music festivals. I think there's like almost like maybe it's our generation didn't grow up properly as well. I think that we've got almost like a Peter Pan thing. So when you have children, you don't want to be the boring old parent like your parents were. And, your parents were probably cool back in the day, but they just had to pretend that they weren't because they had some children, and that's how they thought a parent should be. I've seen recently as well, I've seen raves for children, like toddler raves, like a rave where you take your baby. And I just think that's crossing the line. That I don't even know about their ears and stuff. But I guess it's going on from what you were saying about the sort of Peter Pan generation, and I don't know, like almost like cotton wool generation as well. Like this thing of everybody gets a medal for taking part. Do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think those things are interlinked? Like, we've tried to get rid of competition and we're kind of not teaching children to have a bit more resilience, and that sometimes you win, sometimes you lose,
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I don't know if you've heard of this book, The Coddling of the American Mind.
I've heard about it. I haven't read it, but I heard about it. I think the author or somebody was on Benjamin Boyce one time, and I think at the time it was some footage from Evergreen College, and there was like a 20-year-old student crying with a teddy bear, and I was thinking, if you're at university, you shouldn't be taking your teddy bear to class.
Yeah, well, it's pretty widespread. It's a good book. It probably applies somewhat to the UK too, although they're different cultures. I don't think they're that different in this particular respect. But yeah, it's spot on. I mean, not only has my generation done a terrible job raising these kids, but also they haven't had unstructured time to figure out their own preferences, and they haven't had free play. They're
Do you think it was like, because I don't know, I had lots of unstructured time. I was very bored for a lot of my childhood, like summer holidays. I don't know, like we just sort of sat in the house and played computer games and got bored all the time. Do you think there's like too much attention on developing skills, or you're like developing, you have to go to your tuba class, and then you have to go and do your, I don't know, calisthenics, like a lack of like time to do nothing?
Yeah. That's what I've heard. Again, I'm not a parent, so my own experience is just like looking into families. I was in a relationship with a father.
Okay.
I was with him for 4 years, and I was certainly seeing very prominently the utter unwillingness to tolerate disapproval from his children. Like this was just so striking to me and really common among people in my age, which psychologically, my understanding is that that's really bad for kids. That's a role reversal, and the parent should not be seeking approval from their children. That should be a non-issue. I've thought a lot about my own parents. You saw sadomasochism, so that has a lot to do with my dad. And I got along very poorly with my dad. I hated my dad. But I developed a real appreciation for the fact that he did not seek my approval. And yeah, when I was young, when I was a kid, I was like, I hate him, I hate you, Dad, I hate it. But I turned into an adult because of that. And it's like, I'm really lucky to have had a father that didn't seek my approval.
Do you think that we're going to go full circle? I mean, how do you see things going with this generation? Do you think that maybe things do go backwards and forwards and there'll be an overcorrection perhaps with their generation? Are they going to be strict, or do you think this is something quite novel in the history of people? Because I think that we are in a new time. You know what I mean? I don't think that. I think that Western culture is quite an original one, where, like you say, we have role reversed with the parents. Can you see a way out of this? Like, I don't know what's gonna. I really worry for the future. When this generation comes into power, Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, well, obviously there have been, humans don't really have that great a track record as societies. But what is different about now is the internet, and of course the proliferation of porn, which radical feminists talk about, but the rest of the world really doesn't. It is kind of weird to contemplate that this whole generation raised on computers has been seeing porn the likes of which I never have seen and never want to see, and that they've been exposed to it at early ages. And I don't have firsthand experience with this, but from stories I've heard, this is like really affecting a generation of people in really unprecedented ways. And, there's other things that are unprecedented, right? Like, there's never been this many humans on Earth. When I started being concerned about human population, I think the human population was like 4 billion people, and now it's closer to 8 billion people. And yeah, I don't know how things are going to pan out. It's all like way beyond my control. I feel like it's beyond everyone's control. So I'm just sort of here living out what I hope is a decent natural lifespan, and, doing what I can in this world, which is really not much. And really grateful that, I have many reasons that I'm grateful I didn't have children, but one of them is this one of like this has got to be awful for each succeeding generation dealing with these increasingly intractable problems.
Yeah, I think the past couple of years, especially since lockdowns and everything, I've been so grateful that I haven't had children, because I really feel for parents trying to raise kids in this world. And like you say, we've got overpopulation, computer technologies. I think sometimes we try to work out what's happening with a lot of the trans rights stuff and modern day social justice warriors, the sort of polarization, and then like weird. I feel like there's more weirdness happening, like really weird little screwed subcultures are happening all the time, and these little weird, almost like unreality. I feel like since Brexit happened, and then Trump got in the White House, and then everything's just weird and mad. And I think sometimes we don't actually just take a moment to go, is the internet. A lot of this is about, I think, the unintended consequences of connecting up all the people in the world together in one mainframe and all this technology. Do you think that we should be a little bit kinder on ourselves in terms of the way things are going, and maybe like it's not necessarily even anybody's fault, even though I think there are like definitely key players involved in certain things and people that I really do not like, are we sometimes a little bit reluctant to think about technology as a driver in this? I guess it's like a Marxist analysis, isn't it? That all the cultural things that happen are always due to how society is structured with the technology making advances, and then that changes society. And we like to think that, oh, we just suddenly had the revolution, but actually it was, you needed to have a revolution because you needed to introduce wage labor so that you could sell the that you were creating with all these factories, you know, like like how do you think that all of this social change is being impacted by just computers and technology and things like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's more than just that. I am always wanting to figure out ways to forgive people because I've lost friends in this, and people do really seem to be losing their minds. I'm aware when I'm angry and hurt that my enemies are also angry and hurt, and that they do stupid things because they're angry and hurt. I do feel like, though, this is what you were saying before about how, like, well, we don't think we're bad. We all think we're pretty cool. But I do think that I am older and I'm wiser than I was before. And I had to learn some difficult lessons in my 40s. I should have learned them earlier, about how to manage my own emotions and manage my sense of identity and really not be at the mercy of what other people were thinking about me. So I do think that's a difference. It pains me to see the therapy industrial complex teaching people exactly the opposite of what I believe is essential for mental health, which is an internal locus of control, right? Like, everything I needed to stop being suicidal and stop being miserably depressed had to do with, the saying, what other people think of me is none of my business. And it's so hard, right? Like, it's not fair. And like, but they're doing these awful things. I mean, as a, like, you're talking to me because I'm a cancelee, right? And that has had an impact. So I don't want to, like, downplay that impact, but still the important thing for me is to not be destroyed by that, right? Like, to know that, like, okay, other people have these problems. Other people have these psychological issues that they're, unable to manage themselves. So they're dealing with it by lashing out at me, and other people are cowards, and other people haven't thought about this stuff. Other people have never had to stand up for themselves. Blah, blah, blah. Sucks that I'm suffering for it, but it's not on me, right? Like, they have their lives, I have my life. And what am I trying to get at? I don't even know. I don't even know what I started talking about.
Well, I guess, you know what? Sometimes I think we all do this thing where we imagine everybody else is, like, got their shit together, and, like, if somebody's off with you or whatever, you'll think, oh, it's something that I've done, like, obviously, but it's like maybe they're going through something themselves, and we oftentimes do not allow other people to be just as messed up and self-involved as we are. And most people are pretty self-involved, to be perfectly honest, and they might spend a little bit of time slagging you off, but if you've been cancelled, it's, like you said, I think it's just good to bear that in mind. I'm just wondering, I think you've got a really interesting backstory that I would like to hear a little bit more of, because you sort of started out in San Francisco was it in the 1980s or 1990s?
So I grew up in Urbana, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
I moved to Santa Cruz, California when I was 20. When I was 22 or 23, well, I briefly moved to Austin, Texas, but then I moved to San Francisco, and I spent 11 years in San Francisco. So a lot of growing up for me happened. My young adulthood was in San Francisco.
Okay.
And yes, I was in the sex positive scene.
Woo! How was this? So this must have been, I guess, like would it have been like the 1990s? So like the birth of sex positivity before it's kind of been exported elsewhere. What was it like back then? Like what was it? Has the message changed in terms of the what's being pushed in the sex positivity bundle?
Well, first of all, it was the midst of the AIDS crisis, and I was living in the Castro, and men were dying. That whole, I don't want to say generation, but that whole crop of gay men that were dying of AIDS, some of them were still alive and in the process of dying. So it was really quite heart-wrenching. It was also terrifying because there I was, like a horny 25-year-old, and I was scared I was going to die. And I felt like the generation that had preceded me, in the 70s with free love and stuff, I felt that was my entitlement. And it was like, oh, how could this have happened? I was very conflicted. I was also just extremely horny because that's just the path my life took. I was a very horny young woman. I realize now that the 70s was a real anomaly, and that free sex is not a good idea for humans for a number of reasons.
I think that we were sold the sexual liberation, but it's different for men and women. I think the lens in which that is often viewed is very much an idea of wasn't it great? And maybe it was great for men, but it probably wasn't great for men, but it's even worse for women. And although maybe I'm a little generation behind you, I feel like the same pressure. When I was growing up, it was all like ladettes culture. So it was basically just go out, drink as much beer as all the lads, shag as much as the lads, and that'll be like equality. So I kind of went out and tried to do that, and I did have some fun for like a little while, but actually, like, when I think back on it, it just it wasn't what it was sold to me as. How was your experience in San Francisco in the 1990s?
Well, I just want to say to what you just said, I do think I was dissociating from my body more than I was admitting, because like there's pain and consequences and all these issues for women, and people act like these different issues aren't there. But I was really prone to urinary tract infections. So for me, I would end up in an emergency room like 3 times a year, and have to take a course of antibiotics, and then also be out like, $500 every time because I'm in the United States. And my male partners, it was like nothing. And it took me so long to like acknowledge this was happening. I was just like, this is unfair, but I'm just going to like push that out. The vulnerability to pregnancy. It's like, I have to think about this all the time, and they're not thinking about it at all. Latex allergy, it's weird. It's like I put myself through so much pain pursuing sex. Anyway, so San Francisco, I was trying to get laid. I was trying to follow the male strategy, because what I thought of as my strategy or the female strategy meant that I wouldn't get laid. And I was like, well, these guys don't care about anyone and they're just going to hook up, so let me try what they're doing. And it was also dissatisfying and heartbreaking. And I'm so glad I'm so glad that that's over. I'm so glad that I'm menopausal and don't desire men anymore, and I'm not horny anymore. Just like, thank God. It was so bad.
This is one thing that I find really frustrating when you try to speak with younger women who are sort of still in their sex positivity, I hate you turf / my mum. I always feel like a lot of the rad femme community is seen as, I don't know, like we're seen as the pearl clutchers, aren't we? But a lot of the radical feminists I know have got pretty checkered histories, you know, like a lot of the women, when they're saying having lots of meaningless sex with strangers is probably not very good for you psychologically, it's because we've been there and we've done it, got the t-shirt and several courses of antibiotics. I don't know, like, can you see a lot of yourself in the younger girls and some of the things they're going through? I feel like it's maybe like almost on steroids, or maybe like how it was in San Francisco is now just normal, and that's what you're supposed to do when you're 13 or something, you know?
Yeah. I definitely see myself. I sounded like them. There's no reasoning out of this. Like, I noticed that a lot of women think that young women do this because of the way that they think, that like young heterosexual women think they need a man. And so they do all this stupid stuff because they think they need a man. Having been through it, I just want to say, no, it's not that I thought I needed a man. It's that I was horny out of my mind. And I know it was the case because I stopped being horny when I hit menopause. So, I mean, yes, it was my thinking, but like no amount of thinking could have altered that feeling, that desire, that hunger. Like, I felt like I was going to die if I didn't get laid when I was in my 20s.
Do you think that this is something that radical feminism struggles with a little bit? Although I take a lot of, I think a lot of the what's it called? Like compulsory heterosexuality and those arguments about the way that our desires are socially constructed make a lot of sense to me. But I also wonder sometimes if radical feminists have trouble with understanding that Mother Nature is a patriarch, if you will, like that maybe like to make us, I mean, it's very much against women's self-interest to have sex and make babies, like just in terms of like going about doing your time as a mammal. I think that we have been programmed to want to have sex despite all of the like dangers and downsides that it will cause for women later on. Do you think that radical feminism sometimes almost has like a puritanical streak and a lack of reckoning with female desire and heterosexuality?
Sometimes I do, but you know, women have really different experiences. Like, I know that not all women were crazed, horny maniacs in their 20s like I was. So there's going to be a lot of different takes on it. I certainly think if I had been a lesbian, I would have a lot of really different ideas about men and behavior and all this. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, there's so many different women who are called radical feminist, who we call radical feminist, and there's going to be a lot of different takes and a lot of arguing about what it is. But I can say for me personally, looking at my own life, I'm just like, yeah, there would have been no stopping me. I mean, I cannot imagine, like, you know, you go like, oh, what would you have said to your younger self? And it's just like, you know, like I would have said sorry, but there's nothing that would have persuaded me. There's no magic thing that would have made me not want this. I mean, I guess I maybe could have honored my pain more.
Yeah.
Like, I could have been like, no, really, really pay attention to this. Like, this isn't an anomaly. This isn't a mistake. This isn't an inconvenience. This pain is actually really important and telling you something really important. I don't know if I would have been able to hear that, but I do think that I didn't do that. Maybe I would have gotten a clue, but it was hard. It was just so hard. That feeling of just like needing a body.
Do you think though, do you think maybe a part of the issue is we're so trained and we are training our bodies ourselves to not respond to our bodies when it tells us something, you know, like we almost have like a mind over matter concept with stuff, you know? Like, you're tired, you can't go to bed, you've got to go to work. You know what I mean? Like you or even like comes to Friday night, you don't want to go out. You do go out. Something makes you feel uncomfortable. You don't listen to that voices because you I don't know. Like, do you think that there's a problem with society not respecting the body and the body's intelligence and the body's wisdom, and that we're too much focused on, I guess, fitting our bodies and our perceptions to what we're supposed to be feeling? Does that make any sense to you?
It makes a lot of sense. And my answer is yes. Yes, I do think that. I remember when I was younger and hearing calm people who meditated and trying to take some meditation classes and some yoga classes and being invited to center myself in my body. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And that's why these young people who have been raised on the internet and who think of themselves as anime characters, I have some sympathy with that, because I was desperate to escape my body. My body, like when I tuned into my body, I felt a lot of pain. Who wants that? I didn't. Pain is hard.
Yeah. Well, I think we're conditioned to try to avoid pain, isn't it? It's a natural human condition to just, if you don't like something, just avoid it. But I think we're taking avoidance to like the next level, and maybe I think this is where I don't know if this is a drive of transhumanism, this desire to escape your body and transcend the material. Do you think this is where it's going? I know that people like Jennifer Bilek see transgenderism not so much as a men's rights movement, but more as a stepping stone to the privatization of the human body and the emerging markets of transhumanism. What do you think to those arguments and that concept of what's happening now as a like a bridge to whatever we've got coming up in the future?
Yeah, I definitely think that's a part of it. When I was a kid, we didn't have the internet. We had the original Star Trek, and they had brains in jars in one episode. And that seemed like a perfectly fine idea to me. I didn't see any problem with it. It's like, yeah, just put my brain in a jar, and then when there's another body, it was a naive idea about how people worked. It's taken me a lifetime to get comfortable in my body. It's like an ongoing process. And just even the fact that we talk about our bodies like this, like there's some sort of separate thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't feel whole until my 40s, I guess. And also I have to say that I'm in a lot less physical pain because I had a hysterectomy a couple years ago.
Okay.
And I apparently had all kinds of fibroids and crap in my cervix, not just my uterus, but in my cervix. So I was in a lot of pain that I was told I should just suck up for a couple decades. And after the hysterectomy, that's gone. And it's like, oh, this is great. Like, like you don't actually have to be in pain all the time. I mean, I did everything I could, but it's like I've been given this gift where now I'm not in constant pain. It's much easier for me to be comfortable in my body without being in pain most of the time.
Yeah, I think this is a problem, isn't it? Women's pain is not like taken seriously by medics and doctors, and it's just almost part of being a woman. And I've got so many friends who've had gynecological issues, and it's taken them years for a diagnosis and just been fobbed off, or autoimmune conditions, so many things. And yeah, it's a bit shit, really, isn't it? Like,
yeah. I mean, another thing that changed, which I didn't expect to, I had fibrocystic breast disease. So I have these cysts in my breasts. And until I had my hysterectomy, my breasts hurt all the time. So I don't know what was going on. Like I still have my ovaries, so it wasn't an ovary thing. I don't know what the cysts in my cervix were doing. But when that was taken out, I don't have that anymore. So like I can walk around without a bra. It used to be too painful. Sometimes I'd have to sleep with a bra. And it's just like, it just never occurred to me that it was even possible to not have that. Like I actually have wondered at various times in my life, I had thought about getting a mastectomy just to stop that pain. I never did it, but that I do have, you know, when I hear about young people having mastectomies, I'm like, yeah, I've thought about it. If your breasts hurt all the time, but that's not the reason they're doing it, right? It's just purely identity stuff. But yeah, so it's changed my relationship with my breasts too. It's like, wow, not painful. That's really nice.
Just to go back a little bit to your work, for those who haven't seen it, could you go into a little bit? I'd be interested in to know some of your influences in terms of where you draw, what sort of things you're interested in. I noticed they both sort of draw a lot on mythology and sort of stories. Sadomasochism is based on the story of, what's the one where they all go?
Exodus.
Yes, they go there and then they go there.
It's like Brexit. Like Brexit.
Yeah. Is Moses Nigel Farage? I don't know.
Maybe so. Yeah, you can see how well things worked out for the Hebrews. Just watch sadomasochism and, you know, get some ideas of what's coming down the pike for you.
Yeah. But they have kind of a feminist slant. Were you interested in the history of Judaism and the loss of the sacred feminine and that sort of era of history with the where the patriarchs kind of took over the matriarchal side of the religion or anything like that?
I was not remotely interested in any of this. When I decided to make sadomasochism, my father was in the process of dying. People were still screaming about Sita Sings the Blues. And one refrain of critics of Sita Sings the Blues was, you know, how dare you do cultural appropriation, you white Christian woman. I'm not Christian. But this idea of cultural appropriation is this idea that like artists should only do art that, you know, you get like a genetic check or something. And if the art is related to some genetic category, then you're entitled to do it. So
sounds a bit racist to me.
It's super racist. Yes, it's super racist.
Feminists in me talking, I don't know.
but that they kept saying that, and I was like, all right, you know, like my genetic heritage that I'm entitled to work with according to your idiotic rules would be, you know, Judaism would be, you know, this ritual that we grew up observing in my family. So I'll do that. And I chose Exodus because even though my father was an atheist, he still raised us observing Passover. So we were like atheists that just did Passover. It's the only holiday we did.
Okay, yeah. So you knew that one.
Yeah, but I'd never actually read Exodus. I had just, you know, done Passover every year growing up, but never actually read the accompanying thing. And it also seemed like a good idea because the story of Exodus is in the Christian Bible as well. It's the Old Testament, and that it's a really important story for Muslims. So I thought, okay, this is like all, you know, it's common to all the Abrahamic religions. I did something, you know, Hindu, and now I'm going to do something Abrahamic, and it's just straight up Abrahamic. It ended up getting like pigeonholed as a Jewish thing anyway, but it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to just be an Abrahamic thing. And no, I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't know what to expect. I started reading Exodus, obviously. I read the whole Old Testament, and then I read commentaries on Exodus and different translations of Exodus and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wow, this story is awful. Like I am not relating to this story at all. It was so different from the Ramayana, where I had this really deep relationship with it. And I went ahead and started animating the Moses scenes anyway, just like right out of the Bible. But in terms of what the whole film was going to be about, I was like, what the hell? I was just like, Moses is not my hero. And every movie about Exodus has Moses as the hero, always, right? Like, you know, and that the Hebrews are the chosen people. And I was just like, no, this ain't working for me, especially because as an animator, I had to make visuals for it. And what visuals do we have for Exodus? Well, you know, observant Jews are not supposed to make visuals for Exodus. There's a commandment right in there that says no images. And
can you culturally appropriate your own culture like that? I don't know. Like, I guess you can.
Well, no, there was no culture to appropriate. It's like historically, right? Because I wanted to go back in time, and I was like, no, there's like nothing. But there's gorgeous ancient Egyptian images, and there's gorgeous ancient Assyrian images, and Israel was right between them, and it was a territory that was between these huge empires that were fighting over it back and forth constantly. So some art that has been unearthed in Israel looks really Egyptian, right? Like the Megiddo ivories, they have this real Egyptian look, because it's like, well, you know, at that time it was sort of belonged to the Egyptians, and at this other time it belonged to the Assyrians. Fortunately, the art from those eras is just breathtakingly beautiful. I love ancient Egyptian and ancient Assyrian art. So those were the styles that influenced me. And then, you know, going even further back, then we have the Maria Gimbutas. She's an archaeologist. But
the statues, all of the mother statues with the boobs and the bums and the bellies and the
yes. So that's from like before any of that, before literacy, before what we call civilization. And it was while I was working on this, I was just searching like, what am I going to make of this? So I'd say the book that influenced me the most towards my interpretation is called When God Was a Woman by Merlin Stone. And even though that is a flawed book, what's not flawed is her take on how Exodus was about the end of goddess worship. I really liked that aspect. Wow. So
okay, yeah, I've not heard that before. That's really interesting. Way of looking at it, you know.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, Moses isn't the hero for me, and the Hebrews aren't the hero for me, but like who do I relate to? And I'm like, oh, the bad people. like a mixed multitude went out of Israel, and the second part of Exodus, the Hebrews kill each other, right? They make this golden calf, and then everybody that had made this golden calf, which in my version I used to represent the goddess. I realized other interpretations different, but I'm like, okay, that's what it's going to be for me. And then the people that made that idol and didn't apologize for it got killed by the other Hebrews. So there, you know, the story I'd always heard was like, yay, it's about liberation. The Hebrews get out. They didn't talk about like half the Hebrews or the tribe of Levite, Moses's tribe, killing all these other tribes or members of these other tribes for clinging to earlier religious practices. And I was like, oh, that's me. Like, that's what I would have done. I would have been one of the ones that
got cancelled.
They got cancelled.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Was this before, after, or during your cancellation? Did any of that inform what the story that you were telling, or was this like a totally separate thing?
I think vice versa. I think because I I was finishing the film, and really the goddess parts were the last part of the film that I finished. I did all the Moses stuff first, but I was finishing it, so I was really thinking about this. And I did not want to go in that direction. Like when the idea started happening, I was like, "Oh, I don't want to be one of those like woo like goddess people."
Hippie, like, "Oh, come to my sacred circle."
Yeah, like that is so not me. But I went ahead anyway for the sake of the story, and studying this, it did inform what was going on when I started to go to the TERF side. Like I started questioning the trans activist narrative a year before I told people about it. So I was quiet. Maybe I was even quiet for a year and a half.
You do a lot of research, don't you? Because you feel like you don't have it right, and if you're going to come out, then you need to have all your guns lined up so you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I just started by like exploring, and then there was like about a year where I was like, oh my God, like I've been thinking about this wrong. Like sex is real. Sex is really real. Yeah. There's a real difference between men and women, and all this stuff that I did in San Francisco where I thought I was so subversive and radical. I was like, oh no, what I was doing was I was attracted to narcissists, and that's why I ended up with some autogynephilic lovers. It's like, no, we weren't like, smashing the patriarchy. It was just autogynephilia, which I was encouraging because I thought it was cool. And right. So no, it's not that the canceling stuff affected the movie. I was working on the movie anyway, but I think that it was helping me sort out what was happening in the bigger world. That and a relationship that was really, really bad. I was getting out of a relationship also with probably my life's worst.
Yes. worst narcissist.
It was really bad. And it was like, oh, this is narcissistic abuse. Like, and I was so reluctant to describe it that way because I felt that narcissist is this really overused word. And that if people do stuff you don't like, then you just say it's narcissistic. But actually, this was like a really specific thing that was happening, a real specific flavor. And it was really hard to get out of, really hard. But once I got out of it, I thought like, okay, what was my part in this? And how can I never do this again? Right? Like narc's gonna narc, right? Yeah. Like, and I was just like, there was this red flag and there was this red flag and there was this red flag and there was this behavior and this one. And I didn't leave. And in fact, I like went this other direction. So I need to not do that anymore.
Yeah. Stop being narc bait. Like,
yeah. And that really informed how I responded to my cancellation. Because it was the same damn thing. It was the same. Oh, poor me. Oh, I'm so hurt. Activists like, oh, you're being so mean, and you have to. And I was like, that's what my ex did. And I like every time he hurt me, I would end up apologizing.
I know that one.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I made a promise to myself I'm not going to do that. And that means in this situation too, because this is not right. And I don't want to be a victim of this. I'm not doing this. And so here I am. After another cancellation. It's like, who knew it would get this big?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, I kind of want to say, well, maybe it's a good thing, but it's probably doesn't feel that way when you can't make a living. And I guess so much of being an artist or creative is building up your connections and networking, and that happens over like decades, I suppose. Do you think?
And then you lose so much so fast. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. have you gained anything, do you think, from being cancelled? Like in the longer term, it sounds like you've been on a bit of a feminist journey. Like, I don't know if you even consider yourself a feminist or a rad femme. I think that there's so much in the titles that it's kind of pointless to even identify something when nobody even knows what it is. But would you say that throughout being cancelled and coming out of that relationship and making the film that you've been on a little bit of a journey?
Oh, absolutely. It's been a trip and it's been great. Like, just, I would rather be canceled than to live in a narcissistic relationship. Right? Like, I did the right thing. I hate it. It's totally unfair. It's harmed me, but this is better than if I were playing the game. I have to live honestly. I have to live with integrity. Other people, I would much rather have other people come after me and censor me than censor myself.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think it's a thing about an artist, isn't it? You have a bit of integrity when you're an artist, and if you're self-censoring yourself all the time, then that's going to have an impact on the work that you're able to do and your creative output and your integrity as a great artists shouldn't be political, in my opinion. Like, they make work informed by politics, but I guess you always want a little bit of originality with an artist, somebody that's coming at it from their own angle. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But I've also, I've gotten really interesting new friends. I lost a lot of friends. I got better friends. I love my better friends. You know, I've been traumatized. It's true. Like, the worst thing that happened was in my town, where I got, my screenings got banned twice. I became the only filmmaker in the entire world to be banned from the local art theater. People in my town have been lying about me. It was excruciating to see them just lie and then to see other people believe and endorse the lies. I hated it. It was heartbreaking because, you know, there was communities that I moved in and it just all got poisoned.
I think that people don't understand with a lot of the stuff is being that we're such social creatures, to be socially outcast in one form or another can be rather than, as well as all the like opportunities you would have had to make money and to get your work out there. I think what I'm hearing from a lot of people who have been cancelled, it's the pain of just having friends turn around and stab you in the back, or just pretend that they haven't seen somebody stab you in the back and stay quiet. I mean, you know, social death is like, it's literally one of the worst things that can ever happen to a person. You know, most societies, that could be the end of you, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really bad. And I'm still not all the way over it. And like, I think about moving and, you know, when I was thinking about moving recently, and it was like, oh, then I'd get away from those assholes, right? Because they still all have their jobs. They're still all running their fucked institutions. The theater went bankrupt. There's an art store. There's an art store locally that has a sign in their window that says "Hate has no home here," and then another sign in their window that says "No turfs." I'm just like, I think hate does have a home there in your store.
No, you know what? I wouldn't go into a shop that had a pissy little sign on it like that. Like, I'm like, don't judge me. Don't you tell me. Like, even the signs that's like "No racists." I'm like, are there loads of racists everywhere? Like, I don't know, especially if you're in some liberal city or whatever. Like, no racists, no sexists, no transphobes, no blah 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 blah. I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm being lectured to, and I've just come in to buy some tomatoes. Do you know what I mean? You're a grocer, Barry. What are you doing? Get off Twitter. So anyway,
it says "No turfs," and I'm the village turf. I was made an example of in this town.
Yeah. Well, it is, isn't it? It's the witch burnings, and like, I think they want to make an example of you so other women stay in line and mind their mouths or mind themselves, and you know, like.
I think it's a little bit more than that for me, because I moved here after living in New York for 10 years. My career was mostly international. I was a successful independent animator, a single woman. A lot of artists around here are not that good. This is a real place of mediocrity, and I think they freaking hated me for that.
Well, I tell you what, I think a lot of these witch burnings, I think they're just business as usual for the art world, like it's historically very misogynistic. Women are supposed to be the object of art, not the perpetuators or the actors in art, you know what I mean? And I think I was listening to Rachel Auer. She was on Cambridge Radfems, and she's a cancelled artist, and she's like she's in fine art, and like you look at the history of fine art and the exclusion of women from those from the exhibitions, from the galleries, they can get into the Met if they've got their boobs out, you know what I mean, like in a picture. Do you see it as sort of just a bit of a continuation of same old when it comes to the art world, I don't
know. I'm not in the fine art world. So that is a different world. When people say the art world, that's usually what they mean.
It's not your field.
But my field is animation, and boy, howdy, I have been so excommunicated from that world. And there are people who were really jealous. Like when my canceling started, there was a Facebook page devoted to targeting women like me that I saw. The page has since been taken down, but it was run by this, cartoonist and animator. And you notice that like trans activists are really overrepresented in comics and animation?
Isn't it because they're all geeks? Isn't it like an autism thing, like of just, all computers, animation, comics, that sort of thing? I feel like sometimes it's Revenge of the Nerds,
Yes. Well, I mean, I was also a nerd geek, am. So that was my world. And it was just full of them, but they have never liked, like even 30 years ago when I was a young cartoonist before I got into animation, they did not like it. They did not like women drawing comics. They did not like women drawing well.
Yeah.
They would have, some women, like back in the day, the women that succeeded in alternative comics or underground comics were usually the girlfriends of the successful underground cartoonists. So they got ahead that way. And most women that showed up were all sort of tarted up to appeal to the male cartoonists. I will say that in comics that has changed. Women are much more represented in comics now, but I assume they have to keep their mouths shut because of all these sexist, trans activist misogynists.
It's a real shame. I really like, I don't know if you've seen it, She-Ra. I started watching it with my niece, and it's brilliant. It's animation. It's Noel Stevenson, and it's so good. It's like almost like a perfect story arc, 5 seasons. But inevitably, she's had a mastectomy. She's non-binary. She's disidentifying as a woman, and it's such a shame because I watched it I pushed it on my niece kind of thing because it's got some really great female characters, female role models, and I just feel really sad that you kind of can't just be an amazing artist without kind of disassociating from your body and from your sex. I'm not angry with her, I suppose. I just makes me feel really sad and really maybe disappointed is the right word. I don't just wish we didn't have to go through all this.
Yeah, I mean that does seem to be what the more successful women in comics and animation are doing is they're identifying as not women. So maybe people leave them alone. They're all like lauded for being non-binary. And I'm just like, oh God, like you're female. We all know you're female.
We can all see. How can people find you if they want to find your work? Whereabouts is the best place for them to come and look for you?
Oh, I should update my blog more, but I do have a blog, ninapaley.com. There's a sidebar with a bunch of like links, and you can just click them and go to my work. There's sitasingstheblues.com. There's sadomasochism.com. There's apocalypseanimated.com. There's mysticsymbolic.com, which is another weird project I'm doing. It's an art generator.
Have you got plans for a film? Is Apocalypse going to get turned into a film? Are you thinking about doing something a bit more longer form? Because I'd really, really like to. I'm really whenever you do something, I'm just going to like push it. I don't know. I'll settle my own. I'll do my own film festival for you in my house.
I may make a short film with the material that I'm making for these animated GIFs. So it could become a short film. Originally, I was thinking, I'm just going to make a short film, but then I didn't make it. And then I thought like, I just want to make GIFs. I want to do it with the text. So that seems to be motivating me to actually work. And when I'm done with all of that, it should be not too difficult to make a short film from that. Not a feature film, but a short film.
Okay.
So I may.
I'll keep my eyes peeled. And if you get so inspired to write another full-length film, then please do. I think everybody should go, and when you finish watching this program, go down there at the bottom, find one of the films and go watch them, and then share it with everybody because they're absolutely brilliant. And I think we kind of need a bit more from you, and just sort of uncancel yourself.
I'm pretty happy. I mean, I have to say, this last cancellation, like, first, the fact that a festival invited me, I thought like, it's over. The cancellations are over. That's really nice. I'm coming back into the world. And I had a nice interview with them that they recorded that they ended up not showing because I got canceled. And then when I learned I'd been canceled, I was like, God damn it, it's never gonna end. And then I tweeted about it. And then I'm like, it's different now. Like, now I tweet about it and all these people are saying like, this is fucked up. And that was not the case 4 years ago. It wasn't the case 2 years ago. Like, this is really good. I'm hopeful. There was go on.
I think that people who did get cancelled, as a little bit of time goes on, maybe you'll be, seen as people with a bit of integrity, and you'll actually get more work from it going forward. More opportunities, because, and even like, I think women should probably work a bit more together. If we're getting cancelled, if we come together, maybe we can do things about GP fetishes. Do you know what I mean? Like,
like I realized. So Graham Linehan just wrote a little thing about me, and all of a sudden, all these people were supporting me on Patreon, which I'd never really done much with.
It's a bit long, Patreon, isn't it?
But I just thought, if every time a woman gets canceled, somebody can say like, oh, look, she got 3,000 more Twitter followers and, $400 more a month on Patreon, they're going to stop canceling women. Like, if it's even more Twitter followers and more, like, there's actual metrics for them. It's like, if they actually see like, she's going to be $500 a month richer if we cancel her. I'm not $500 a month richer, but I could, like, if people keep doing it. But it's like, that would do it for them. They would just be like, well, I don't want her to be $500 a month richer. I'm not going to cancel her. She's just going to benefit from it. It hasn't been the case yet that women have benefited from it, but like, it could be. Like, if people keep doing this, it could be. And that's like the best message you could send to these people. Like, then their tactics will not work. That is not the outcome they want.
Yeah, I think they're kind of making it cool and making it it's almost like a little bit of countercultural now, isn't it? To be the cancelled person, and like, it wasn't fun at the time, but maybe we're coming through to an end of it, and I've got my fingers crossed. And I hope that we're coming to a little bit of a.
It's not the case in the US yet. The UK is ahead of us.
I think we're getting there. Just as we were chatting, my girlfriend showed me the Department of Health are coming out of Stonewall, which is fantastic because Stonewall. So this is a little protest sign I made. Stonewall have been totally misrepresenting the law and fucking over women, basically, with the misrepresentation of the law, and so hopefully this is a little bit of a change. I think it's going to be one of them things that's going to happen really, really slowly and then really, really fast. So fingers crossed.
Our eyes are on you. You're leading the way.
Else you want to say? Anything you want to promote, or anything you want to say to the audiences in England?
You broke up a little bit. You just asking if there's anything I want to promote?
Yeah. Have you got anything you think before we get off? Any messages to the fans in England?
I don't know about myself. We're fans here. I gotta say, all my turban friends, we're all, what is it? We're all admirers of Turf Island. Thank you for the work you do. Really, we are so grateful. Yeah. So thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for all the amazing animations, and keep up the good fight. I'm sure we'll be all right at the end of the day. We always are, aren't we? We'll come out and everything will be a lot better on the other side. Thank you so much for talking with me today, Nina. If you want to hit the like button, subscribe and share, please. That'll help her get it out. I'm DJ Lipper. This is Nina Paley with Make More Noise. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Bye.
Hang on, I'm pressing it. It's not. Sorry, I'm just.